You ever wonder what happens to that spark? That moment of pure genius that launches a company into the stratosphere? Well, today we're digging into why that spark so often just seems to fade away. I mean, why does that initial incredible engine of innovation so often just fizzle out as a company gets bigger? You see it happen all the time, right? A disruptive force becomes, well, just another boring big company. And it turns out the answer often lies in the stories we tell ourselves about how innovation is supposed to work. So we're going to tackle this head-on by breaking down 3 really common, widely held beliefs about innovation. And as you'll see, the conventional wisdom here, it's not just a little bit wrong, it can be actively destructive to the whole creative process.
All right, first up, the myth of the lone genius. You know the one I'm talking about, right? That romantic idea of a single, brilliant visionary who drives the entire company forward with their ideas. But does that model really work in the real world?
And look, this is a really powerful idea, especially in those early days. The thinking goes that if one person holds the entire mental model for a project, they can move at lightning speed. No design by committee, no endless meetings to build consensus, just pure, focused vision. And that sounds great. But here's the trade-off, and it's a big one. On the one hand, yeah, you get that incredible speed and a super coherent vision. But the downside? Whoa. You're talking about isolation, huge architectural blind spots, and a really serious vulnerability that the tech world has a pretty grim name for: the bus factor.
Yeah, the bus factor.
It's a bit grim, but it's a super useful idea. It's basically this: if your entire innovation in one area depends on a single person, your project is unbelievably fragile. It just doesn't scale. And it's always one bad day, one person getting sick or quitting or, getting hit by a bus, away from grinding to a complete halt. So here's the real insight. The principle just gets the role wrong. It's not about having only one person contributing ideas. That's a terrible idea. It's about having one person with the final authority to make the call. What you want is a creative dictatorship, not creative isolation. Big difference. And that leads us perfectly into our second big idea, which really gets into the power struggle that you always see when a company starts to scale up. It's that classic tension, right, between the innovators who create the cool stuff and the managers who try to organize it all. Okay, so this table just lays it out perfectly. You've got these 2 paths a company can take. On one side, you have the innovator-led company. That's where the domain expert is at the top, making the big calls. On the other, the innovator-free company, where professional managers are in charge. And just look at their failure modes. They're totally different. The innovator-led company might overreach or burn out, but the innovator-free one? It fails because of something called legibility capture.
Legibility capture. I love this term. It's like the silent killer of innovation in big companies. It's what happens when a brilliant, maybe kind of weird, complex idea has to get simplified over and over and over again for managers who aren't really experts until every last drop of novelty is just squeezed right out of it. And you can see the whole sad process right here. It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. The idea starts out amazing and novel. But then, step 2, it gets simplified for a manager's report. Step 3, it's weakened to fit neatly into a roadmap. Then it's sanitized for the big board deck. And by the end, what's left is safe, it's understandable, and it's completely, utterly incremental. The truly groundbreaking stuff, it just never survives that journey.
I mean, does this sound familiar to anyone? I bet it does, because this is legibility capture in action. It's the ultimate irony, isn't it? The organization, in its effort to manage risk and create predictability, accidentally ends up smothering the very breakthroughs it says it wants. Okay, so the answer seems obvious, right? Just keep the innovators in charge. Problem solved. But it's not quite that easy. Our third and final piece of the puzzle looks at a much more subtle problem, the innovator's own psychology, and how their greatest strength can twist into their biggest liability. This quote just hits the nail on the head. Being right is the most addictive form of micromanagement. Think about that. The very thing that makes a founder so successful, their ability to just see the right answer way faster than anyone else, that exact same trait can become the very thing that strangles their company as it grows. So the innovator CEO really comes to a fork in the road. They have a choice. Path number 1, fall into the trap of constantly overriding their team because, let's be honest, they probably are right most of the time. Or path number 2, learn the much harder discipline of actually trusting their team, delegating real authority, and shifting their job to removing obstacles. One path creates a bottleneck, them. The other creates genuine scale.
Okay, so how does a leader actually know when it's time to let go? Well, here is a fantastic practical rule of thumb. You delegate at the point when the cost of your own divided attention becomes greater than the cost of someone else's imperfect judgment. And for most founders, that point arrives a heck of a lot earlier than they think it does.
All right, so where does all this leave us? Let's pull all these different threads together and see what the big picture of sustaining innovation actually looks like.
So what are the real, deeper truths here? Well, first, it's not about finding some lone genius. It's about empowering a single, clear decision maker. Second, it's about building a system that actively protects those fragile new ideas from getting explained to death by committees. And finally, and maybe this is the hardest part, it demands that leaders manage their own innovation affliction to know when to step back.
At the end of the day, this is the core challenge, the fundamental tension. You absolutely need that focused, singular vision to create something truly new. But at the same time, you need the organizational resilience to survive, to scale, and to not be totally dependent on one person. It's a constant, really difficult balancing act.
And that leaves us with one last, really important question for you to think about. Look at your own team, your own organization. Is it actually designed for real, messy, genuine innovation, or is it just designed for easy explanation? The answer to that question pretty much tells you everything you need to know about its future. Thanks for tuning in.